Oh, you want me to start? Okay. Hi, I'm Paul. This is a YouTube channel. Duh. Why people are always saying some of those obvious things on their videos and become catchphrases? They say it every time. Look at the camera. That's mine. Not as creative. Well, it's creative. I mean, it's more creative, not as relevant, maybe. I don't know. People usually cut that stuff out. Not me. So, I'm going to look over this way and talk for now, I think. No reason why. Back to the camera. So, the drug doesn't matter. That's what I want to tell you today. When we're talking about addiction, the drug does not matter. Dependence is a different story, and maybe it's just me with my I can't think of the word to explain my issue with words. How appropriate. So I often think maybe it's just semantics, meaning it's just words, the way we use the word. There could be different meanings for the word or slightly different connotations in the context based on who's saying it, when they're saying it, all that kind of stuff. So I think that sometimes I go overboard on that and give meaning to things more than is necessary. But I think, well, in my perspective, dependence differs from addiction. And so when we're talking about the importance of the drug in the addiction / dependence scenario, or instead of slash, I should say, I don't think that the drug matters with addiction as much as it does with dependence. So what is the difference between addiction and dependence? Maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow, because not right now. Right now I want to say the drug does not matter. And I don't know that I'm going to say anything any more useful except for the drug doesn't matter. But I guess I will try and support my argument here. But this, what is it called? This presentation is directed towards not necessarily the person who is experiencing addiction, but the people who might be working with someone who is experiencing addiction, or loving someone who is experiencing addiction, or friends with, or et cetera, et cetera. So if you are dealing with addiction, either firsthand or secondhand, doesn't matter, then stop being concerned about what the drug is. I hear it all the time, but at least it's not the hard drugs, or we're more concerned about the hard drugs, or et cetera, whatever. See, it's funny when you prime yourself to say something like I said, et cetera, 10 seconds ago, and now I was about to say it again, and I'll probably say it more times, even though I don't say that on a daily basis. I primed myself for some reason, brought it up, and now I'm going to say it a lot. But what is a hard drug? Can you tell me that? Is it an opiate like morphine or heroin? Morphine, which defines as endogenous morphine, meaning internal morphine, which drawing in from the history of when scientists or neuroscientists or whoever was mapping out, chemists probably, whoever it was mapping out the neurotransmitters, the chemicals in the brain, and they discovered one that looks molecularly similar to morphine. They said, hey, wow, this looks just like morphine. Let's call it internal morphine, endogenous morphine, endorphin. So, is it that hard drug, which your brain makes, or is it cocaine, which comes out of a plant and just refined, similar maybe to the process of refining sugar? I guess it's probably not similar, but the idea is that it comes from a plant and gets refined, making it more and more concentrated. So essentially, you're just concentrating. So syrup. So if you have a sugar syrup, a sugar solution, is that hard sugar? Is that hard drugs? Like hard, you know what I'm saying? What makes a drug hard, though? The legality of it, like cannabis, which had been for my whole life until the last couple of years, illegal and a Schedule 1 narcotic, supposedly having zero medicinal benefit and high risk for abuse. Which, remember, I told you can't abuse a drug because it's inanimate. You can only abuse yourself with a drug. You can use a drug, or you can abuse yourself, but you can abuse yourself with all kinds of things, not just drugs. So, but what is a hard drug, though? Let's break down all of these things that we think about. All the ways, these cultural misperceptions, at least from my opinion. But maybe you don't agree, but listen to it. and see why. Why do you not agree? Sometimes we have to do that. We have to listen to things we don't agree with and identify why we don't agree with it in order so that we can understand ourselves better, which is what I do a lot. Not as much. I have done it often. I don't know. But I do it occasionally. You got to challenge yourself to understand what you believe. But the question of, that what makes a drug slow down. What makes a drug hard, and why is that? Why does that matter? So when you're talking about addiction, the issue is the compulsion to use, and so that can be anything. I've felt compulsivity around eating food, drinking soda. My phone's ringing. Oh shoot! I should answer that. I will answer it. I'll call back. Which reminds me, I'm supposed to call somebody last week. Got a message on Friday and I didn't call back. I forgot to, but then I remembered this morning, and I hate that. I hate when I forget, especially over, like, if it's one day, it's not that big a deal, but 2 days, even though it was a weekend, but still, I would call back. If I remembered on Saturday, I would have called back, but I didn't. All right, so the drug doesn't matter because the addiction behavior is about compulsive conditioning. It's about when I feel this way, I do this thing, and it changes the way I feel. Now, initially, it probably changes the way I feel to good, but then over time, maybe it doesn't actually get me to feel better anymore, but I still do it because I'm conditioned into it, and I have not a lot else to hope for or hope in, so I continue using that thing. Or maybe it does help briefly, but the time that it helps for is diminished over time. You know what I'm saying? And so, but by pairing this feeling with this behavior, or whatever hand you want to put it on, this behavior with this feeling, and then this behavior, by pairing those two things together, you create conditioning. I'm squinting to see what the time is on this. I'm not wearing my glasses, so this is too blurry. And then you create the conditioned response, and then you engage in it compulsively. And so whether it's sugar, me compulsively eating a box of donuts or a bag of gummy bears, or it's heroin, somebody compulsively injecting heroin into their veins, the drug isn't. And this is where I say, like, on some factor, this is all nuanced stuff here. There's factors to it. There's elements where, yeah, heroin is more dangerous to me than sugar because, but a lot of that is social responsibilities or social issues. The legality of it and stuff like that. It's social perception, what someone else is going to do to me, not necessarily what it's doing to me itself. My addiction to sugar versus an addiction to alcohol versus an addiction to heroin versus an addiction to cocaine, the compulsive elements are similar, and you want to treat them the same way. You want to stop focusing on the thing that you're trying to stop and start building the thing that you want. You've got to look at what the cause is. What's the underlying cause of this thing? That's what matters most. The person matters, and the cause matters, but the drug doesn't matter, because when we're speaking just strictly from the addiction terms, we want to know, why did this conditioned response occur, and what is hoped to be achieved through the compulsion, and can we break that compulsion so that we can find a way to resolve the underlying issue without creating harm or damage, or by reducing the harm. So you don't need to know the drug to do that. I set up some kind of old-timey wager here. Bring me a person with with an unidentified addiction, and we won't talk about the drug, and I can help them break the addiction. I believe that that's possible, because it's the same principles to break conditioning or break compulsion through creating new conditioning. That's my whole thing. I think that's my whole approach. Remember, increase awareness and break those conditioned responses by building new conditioning. Right? So the drug doesn't matter. In order to do that thing, it doesn't matter what the drug is. But if we get into dependence, which maybe I'll do that one tomorrow, or record that today and then post it tomorrow, but I'll talk a little bit more about what's the difference between dependence and addiction, and that's where the drug does matter. But for now, if you are a police officer, if you are a lawyer, if you're a judge, if you are a probation officer, if you're a social worker, if you're a counselor, if you're a doctor, if you're whoever you are, if you're a human being, maybe start to think about that. If and you don't have to agree with me, but maybe just think about, does the drug matter? When we're talking about addiction, does the drug matter? Is there such a thing as a hard drug? What makes it a hard drug? Is it just the legality of it, which can change at the drop of a hat? And was it 1919? You could be drinking a beer and you're a perfect law-abiding citizen, and then the clock switches over to a new day, and all of a sudden it's prohibited and you're now an outlaw. So is something problematic if it's tied to something so fleeting? But research some of that, some of the laws and what's going on behind the scenes with those things and the history of this war on drugs, and then tell me if the drug matters or not. But that was fun. I don't think the drug matters as much as the person or the behavior, and so I don't want to hear anybody ever again. I don't want to hear you say, but it's a hard drug. It doesn't matter. It's more about the behavior. And so when we can address the things that matter, if we can get into the root underlying causes, get into building the person up into the person that they want to be, and allowing them to respecting them. What was that? Respecting them. The building's making noises. It's settling or something in the sunlight. It's freezing cold outside and like below zero, and then the sun's out, so it's shifting. Thermal exchange happening on the building, I suppose. But respecting the person enough to allow them to live the life that they want to live, and then supporting them to do that as long as it's not causing harm to other people. And even that, they're still free to do it, but then they got to face the consequences. So, all right. Well, thank you for watching. That is the consequence of you turning on YouTube and subscribing to this channel, that you might end up watching these videos. It's possibly a consequence of me making the videos, that somebody will watch it. And you watching it then has a consequence of me making more of them. See how this all works? I don't know. It's confusing to me too. But I appreciate you for being alive and whatever else you want to do. All right. Next time. Thanks.